Thanks for checking out another edition of Speed Chronicles. It's every Wednesday here on the RevTV YouTube channel. We look at racing stories in and around the track, not super results oriented, but a lot of other stories that are percolating in a number of different racing series. We'll look at the NASCAR Canada Series, NASCAR Cup Series, and NASCAR IndyCar, Formula One, IMSA, and whatever else we can come up with. So if you haven't checked it out, thanks for doing so on this episode. At Todd Lewis Sports, at RevTV are the socials on X and Instagram for thoughts, ideas, questions, and feedback as well. It's something we started at the beginning of the summer. We're growing it. It's going well. We're very pleased with it. We'll see where it continues to develop into the future. The first thing that comes to mind is like, how did it get to be Labor Day weekend already? I mean, it's on the horizon. It's just about here, and everybody's going to panic because, oh my gosh, this is the end of the summer, and Labor Day, it's the last long weekend of the summer. And there is just about every local track in Ontario, I think, that is having their end of summer, some are having their last events of the season. And everybody gets a little disappointed and unsettled because, that's kind of the end of the summer and every kids are going back to school and all the rest of it. But hey, there's still lots going on, still lots of racing action. Might not be at your local track, but still lots to follow and cover for months and months and months to come. And that's what we'll keep you involved with here on Speed Chronicles. So this past weekend, we had the NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series race at Daytona. That still doesn't sit right with me. That they're racing at Daytona in August. I grew up with the July 4th weekend was the second Daytona weekend. I know they want to move things around and they're doing things differently, and we'll get to the Mexico City announcement in a second, but that still doesn't sit right with me because Bristol night race was always the last weekend in August. It was right before the Labor Day weekend. That was always when the Bristol night race is. Now the night race has moved into September, and I'm telling you, football's kind of a big deal in the US. I don't just mean NFL football because like, oh, the race is Saturday night. Yeah, it is. College football is a big deal. High school football is a big deal. I know the crowds have shrunk from their peak, but I just think that you're working against yourself a little bit here. Okay, since I mentioned it, let's mention the NASCAR in Mexico City. Long speculated, long rumored, long time in the works, now official after being leaked out and little teases being leaked out for a while. The announcement is official that NASCAR, both Xfinity and Cup Series, will race in Mexico City. Not on the exact Formula One track. They're going to shorten it by a couple of corners, but they are going to race on the road course in Mexico City in 2025. Yes, Canada, that means you will be disappointed again. There will not be a Cup Series race in Canada in 2025. Not to say it won't happen in the future, because that's something that's been talked about and teased and has been discussed on and off at heated and very heated discussions at some points, and thinking we were getting closer. But it sort of comes in waves and heats up and cools off, and it's a little cooler right now. I'm thinking Chicago, it's looking it's 50-50 still, but maybe leaning a little bit towards the return next year. It's not done, but it's leaning towards the return next year. Plus Mexico City, that's not really creating an opening. They still have to figure out when to hold the race, and I know when they want to hold it in Montreal, but it'll happen. I feel good and I feel comfortable and confident that it can and will happen. But next year it's going to be in Mexico City, and there are some that are screaming that this is the worst possible thing in the world, that NASCAR is getting away from their roots and they're not just racing at short tracks in the South anymore. Well, that started to happen many, many years ago, and it was necessary to grow the business and grow it into the size of the business that it is. I just talked about, the importance of date equity and the traditions as well. Yes, Daytona, the second race of the year, July 4th weekend. Bristol, night race, last weekend in August. Those are things that need to hang around. But expanding and growing, especially the Cup Series, to international events and other venues is a good thing as well. I think you still need to have short tracks. I still think you need to have the Daytona 500 start the season, and you still need to have the 600 at Charlotte on the Memorial Day weekend. but growing into other areas is a positive. Going to Mexico City will be a significant success in terms of the business. The event will do very well. Yeah, there's a lot of logistics and line items that need to be dealt with and processed. Getting the teams there, getting them back safely. I know people were talking about Kyle Busch and his gun incident a few years ago. That won't be a problem. They'll be able to navigate that. Also, huge props to Kyle Busch for his comments last week at Daytona after Harrison Burton hung on to get the victory, his first victory in the Cup Series, and a big emotional one because he's out of work currently at the end of the year. And when asked about it afterwards, Kyle Busch said, "Yeah, I thought we were going to be there, and they're really the only thing short. I did everything short of wrecking him, and he wasn't going to do that." Here, here. Good for you. Isn't that nice to hear from a driver occasionally, as opposed to, well, I did what I had to do and I moved him out of the way. Kyle Busch wasn't going to wreck him. And no, it's not just because it was a super speedway 2.5 mile track. That's not the way you should win a race. So huge props to Kyle Busch for that. Daytona was also the debut on a full-time basis for NBC of Lee Diffie. He's gone from IndyCar. IndyCar has gone from NBC next year. So Lee Diffie has moved over and taken over the top spot on the Cup Series broadcast for NBC. And again, polarizing views that he doesn't sound like an American. And you know what? Sometimes that's a good thing. And his enthusiasm is off the charts. And some think it's too much, some think it's just right, think he's fantastic. You're going to have that sort of view from whoever is working as an announcer, whether it be in the play-by-play, lap-by-lap call, whether it's an analyst, a host, a pit reporter, a pit announcer, it doesn't matter. There's some that are going to like it. There are some that are not going to like it. I don't think it will cause more people to tune out than tune in, as some suggest. But Lee Diffie is the voice now for the NASCAR Cup Series on NBC. Okay, what else? IndyCar, Portland, good event as usual. A very fondly remember that event and being there and working that event. Drama on lap one. No, it didn't occur at the carousel off the start. It was Scott Dixon that got punted on lap one and pretty much ruined his championship chances. But good for Will Power, showed his experience there, taking over the top spot from Santino Ferrucci and going to a victory. The only laps he didn't lead, I believe, were when he was on pit lane for as pit stops were cycling through. Is he going to have a chance? Yeah, it's possible. They do have a championship battle going into the last few events of the season, which is good news. Formula One back in action as well. And there's championship races there too. I know it's a big gap right now between Max Verstappen in terms of the drivers' championship. I think it's 70 points. I'm not convinced it's over yet, though, especially with how McLaren has shown. If Mercedes and Ferrari can mix things up enough, maybe it shakes things up. Max and Red Bull clearly are not the head and shoulders advantage over everyone that they were. So I think it's good for the balance of the season. And I think we'll have both the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship contested as we get down to the last couple of races of the year. And I think that's a positive thing. Logan Sargent, sorry, your time was up. It's been talked about and speculated for so long. 36 races, only scored points in one. Yeah, he's driving a Williams. I get all that. But you know what? It just does not seem to be a fit for a while. And it's a cutthroat business. Sometimes you are much desired and wanted, and other times they can't get rid of you fast enough. They're not even going to wait till the end of the season. He's out of the seat, and that's going to be the way it continues. Hey, before I go too far as well, I should mention that IMSA was also racing last weekend, just the GT cars, and I kind of like that. I think it's nice that they kind of have their own event and highlighted it at VIR. I thought it was good. I thought the racing was good. Thought the action was good, and I think having an event, yeah, maybe you could even do a couple of just the GT cars was a good thing for IMSA, and I kind of like that. NASCAR Canada, haven't touched on that yet. We were at Circuit ICAR last week, the unexpected week off because of the rain delay and rescheduling of Delaware. So back in Quebec at Circuit ICAR, shorter race, 43 laps, sprint race. Andrew Ranger wins. Kevin Lacroix, Marc-Antoine Camirand are the podium. That's kind of the story of the season right there. Is those three guys have been the class of the competition this year. They have really showed, and they've figured stuff out. They've got their programs on track, and they are the best three cars and teams in the series right now. Cameron with a good lead. No, it's not insurmountable, but he's gonna have to do something that works against him to really affect the championship and maybe not have it decided even before we get to Montmagny in the final race of the season. Great to be in Quebec once again. The passion and excitement and enthusiasm of race fans is just fantastic and so welcoming. People coming up and saying hello and good to see you and thanks for showing the series and being part of it. It's great. I love the excitement and enthusiasm as well. I am willing to crown the pit lane at Circuit ICAR as the worst pit lane to be a part of in the history. It's just it's so tight, it's so small. The pit lane itself for the cars is barely 2 lanes wide, and because we had a pretty good sized field of cars, and the way they have it configured, there were essentially two short pit lanes. They had the front group of cars, and then they had the back group of cars, and there were grandstands in the middle. So for us to get from one to the other, you have to walk out in pit lane. Hey, it's Quebec, and it's just how they had to do it. But it was fun. There were only a few times that cars were passing, and everybody was aware of us, and it was safe and it was fine. But it's a very weird and strange pit lane. Busy weekend this weekend, as I mentioned off the top. There's just about every track has got their end of summer, some with the end of season events. The last big event of the year for Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is this weekend. The Labor Day sprints, WeatherTech 200 for the NASCAR Canada series. We've got FEL Sports Car Championship Canada presented by Michelin. The Radicals are there as well. F4, FUSA are there. Trans Am is back for the first time in 10 years. I'm pleased to get to work on that series as well this coming weekend. So if you're coming out, the weather looks fantastic. I know they're expecting a great crowd and super excited to be involved with that this year. So it's going to make it for a good end of summer long weekend, last long weekend, excuse me, of the summer before we get to the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend in October. But yeah, looking forward to it. So don't worry too much that racing season's coming to an end. There's still lots to get excited about and lots to enjoy as well. So thanks for checking out this week's edition of Speed Chronicles, and we'll do it again next week. Make sure you follow us on the social channels at RevTV, at Todd Lewis Sports. You've got thoughts, ideas, questions, comments that you want answered. Feel free to shoot them along as well. Enjoy a great long weekend and a great weekend of racing. Back again next Wednesday.